When my husband James filed for divorce after 15 years of marriage, I didn't scream, beg, or throw things. I simply nodded, signed the papers, and said softly, "Then I wish you the best, James." He looked almost relieved, like a man who'd been rehearsing that conversation for months. His tie was perfectly knotted, his expression carefully composed, like he was performing calmness instead of feeling it. "I just need a new life," he said. I smiled. "Then I hope you enjoy it." He didn't realize that I already knew he'd started living that new life months ago, with her. That night, I saw it with my own eyes. I was driving home when I passed Vincenzo's, our favorite restaurant. The place where he'd proposed. The place where we used to say, no matter what happens, we'll always come back here. Through the window's warm glow, I saw him, sitting at our old corner table, holding the hand of a red-haired woman who looked half my age. Her laugh was high and light, the kind of laugh that sounds rehearsed. Their wine glasses clinked. His smile, that same smile he once saved for me, looked effortless. I parked across the street and watched for a minute. Then I decided to go inside. The maitre d' recognized me instantly, his face tightening in surprise. "Mrs. Carter, good evening." "Just Michelle, please," I said. "And I'll be joining my husband." Every step toward their table felt like walking through smoke, the air thick, the noise distant, my heartbeat too loud. James saw me before I spoke. His fork froze midair, eyes wide, mouth half open. "Michelle? What are you doing here?" I smiled, calm, composed, terrifyingly polite. "I just wanted to congratulate you on your freedom." I set the cream-colored envelope gently on the table between their plates. "To a new life," I said. The red-haired woman blinked. James frowned, confused, then curious. I didn't wait for him to open it. I turned, walked past the maitre d' and stepped out into the cool night air. Through the glass door, I saw him tear open the envelope. His smile vanished. His hand trembled as his eyes darted across the page. The color drained from his face. He looked up sharply, but I was already gone. That moment, that look, was the quiet ending of our marriage. But the story began 6 months earlier. It was a Tuesday morning. The twins were at school, our daughter Emma was at her piano lesson, and I was doing laundry, the kind of ordinary routine that makes you feel safe. I picked up one of James's shirts from the hamper, a crisp white dress shirt he'd worn to a late-night meeting. At first, I thought the faint red mark on the collar was lipstick from me, until I realized I hadn't worn lipstick in weeks. It wasn't my shade. It wasn't my mistake. My stomach dropped. For years, I'd known every scent, every crease, every subtle detail of his world. His cologne, the faint scent of coffee he carried, the way his phone was always face down during dinner. But that red stain said more than any confession ever could. Still, I told myself I was imagining things. Maybe a colleague hugged him. Maybe it was nothing. But when late nights at the hospital became weekends away, when the gym became his new obsession, when Shell turned back into Michelle, the truth became impossible to ignore. Something had changed. Or maybe I had just stopped pretending not to see it. I started watching more closely, the way he checked his phone under the table, how he smiled when he read certain messages, how he came home smelling faintly of a perfume I didn't wear. When I asked, "Everything okay at work?" he smiled without looking at me. "You worry too much." That was the last time he looked at me like his wife. 3 weeks later, my suspicions turned into certainty. His conference in Paris was real, but not for the reasons he claimed. I found the hotel receipt while cleaning out his office drawer. 2 tickets, 2 guests, 1 king-size bed. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I wanted proof that couldn't be denied. So I contacted a private investigator. Within days, photos arrived. James on the streets of Paris, his arm around a young redhead, her lipstick the same deep crimson as the stain on his collar. The same woman he'd later bring to Vincenzo's. He looked happy. I didn't. When he returned home that weekend, he hugged me out of habit. "It's good to be home," he said. I smiled. "Is it?" 2 days later, he handed me divorce papers. 15 years reduced to signatures and silence. I signed them, folded the pages, and slipped the DNA test results, the ones that had arrived that very morning, into the cream envelope that would change everything. I wasn't shaking anymore. The heartbreak had hardened into something steady, focused. Revenge wasn't about hurting him. It was about truth. And truth, when revealed at the right time, destroys quietly, completely. That night, I sealed the envelope, whispered to myself, "To a new life," and placed it in my purse. Tomorrow, he'd learn what those words really meant. I didn't sleep that night after leaving Vincenzo's. I sat on the edge of my bed, still in the dress I'd worn to deliver the envelope, staring at the half-empty glass of wine on my nightstand. My hands trembled, not from regret, but from the weight of what came next. The envelope had done its job. The truth was out. But the truth wasn't finished yet. Because what James read in that restaurant, what turned his face ghostly pale, wasn't the whole story. It was just the beginning. It had all started months earlier, right after I'd discovered the lipstick stain. I remember every second of that morning. The sunlight came through the blinds in thin golden lines, cutting across the floor. It should have been an ordinary Tuesday, but instead, it became the day I began to see my marriage for what it really was. When I saw that red mark on his shirt, I felt something break. Not loudly, but quietly, like glass cracking under pressure. I didn't confront him right away. That wasn't me. I'd learned long ago that reacting too soon only gave him more power. James had always been composed, even manipulative when it came to emotions. He'd make me feel small for being hurt. He'd say things like, "You always jump to conclusions, Michelle." So instead, I played along. That night, I made his favorite dinner, roast chicken and garlic potatoes. He kissed my forehead absently, muttering that he had to catch up on hospital paperwork. I smiled and nodded. "Of course," I said, while he carried his plate to his study and closed the door. After he fell asleep, I went into that same study. The scent of his cologne still lingered in the air. His phone was locked, but the laptop wasn't. He had left it open, a mistake he would regret. At first, I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe confirmation, maybe denial. But what I found was worse, an email from Emily Roberts, his research assistant. It wasn't work-related. "You left your shirt again," she'd written. "Next time, I'll keep it as a souvenir." Beneath it was a photo. Her, wearing his shirt, the same white one I'd found that morning. Her lipstick was the same shade of red. That night, I printed every message, every photo. I didn't cry. I didn't even shake. It was as if my emotions had shut down to protect me. For the next 2 weeks, I gathered everything. Travel receipts, hotel bookings, fake conference invitations. He thought he was clever, labeling expenses as continuing education. But I'd been married to James Carter long enough to know how he hid things, in plain sight, under layers of respectability. And then came the moment that changed everything. A phone call from a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Carter?" A woman's voice said softly. "This is Claire. I think we need to talk." I almost hung up, assuming it was another scam call, but something in her tone, hesitant, fragile, made me pause. "Do I know you?" I asked. "No," she said quietly, "but I know your husband." Those words froze me. We met the next afternoon at a small cafe downtown. She couldn't have been older than 28, blonde, nervous, holding a folded napkin in her lap like a shield. "I didn't mean to get involved," she said, tears already filling her eyes. "He told me he was separated, that you were both just waiting for the paperwork I didn't interrupt." I let her talk. "He said he wasn't sure how to tell you about me, about our son." My stomach turned to ice. "Your son?" She nodded. "He's 3. James has been helping us financially, but he doesn't want anyone to know. He said it would ruin his reputation. I sat there in silence as the pieces fell into place. The hidden transfers, the late nights, the sudden charity donations. My husband wasn't just having an affair. He'd built an entirely separate life. Before I left, she reached into her purse and handed me a photo. A little boy with dark curls and the same deep-set hazel eyes as James. The resemblance was undeniable. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I thought you knew." I thanked her and walked out. I didn't collapse. I didn't scream. I just drove. For nearly 2 hours, no destination, no music, just the sound of my breathing and the wind rushing past. That night, I pulled out one of James's combs, the one he kept in his gym bag. I found a strand of hair, sealed it in a plastic bag, and ordered a DNA test kit online. Not because I needed confirmation, but because I wanted proof that could never be denied. 2 weeks later, the results arrived. The boy was his son, and that's what I'd placed in the envelope at Vincenzo's. I thought that would be the end, that watching his face drain of color would finally give me peace. But it didn't. It only confirmed what I already suspected. James's lies went deeper than I'd imagined. That night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have done that," it read. No name, no signature. But I knew who it was. The text kept replaying in my mind. "You shouldn't have done that." No name, no punctuation. Just a message that felt colder than any words James had ever spoken to me. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I already knew who it was. It wasn't James. It was her. 2 days had passed since the scene at Vincenzo's, and I was trying to keep things normal for the kids. Breakfast, school runs, laundry, all the tiny rituals that made life feel stable. But underneath, I was on edge. James hadn't called or shown up since that night, but his lawyer had. A thick envelope slid through the mail slot early Wednesday morning, a revised settlement offer. Shorter, colder, and far less generous. "Unreal," I muttered, flipping through the pages. He wanted to keep the house. Our house. The one I'd designed room by room, the one where our children had taken their first steps. I took a deep breath and set the papers aside. He wasn't just trying to end our marriage. He was trying to erase me. And then the phone rang. "Mrs. Carter?" A polite voice asked. "This is Detective Harris with the Westbrook Police Department. Are you available to come in today?" My heart stuttered. "What is this about?" "It's probably nothing," he said carefully. "Just a follow-up regarding a report filed by Mr. James Carter." My hands went cold. "A report?" "Yes, ma'am. Concerning potential harassment and defamation." For a moment, I couldn't speak. He was accusing me. At the station, Detective Harris was professional, almost gentle. "Mr. Carter claims you've been sharing private medical information and making false allegations that could damage his professional reputation." I stared at him, stunned. "You mean the truth?" He gave a cautious shrug. "I'm not here to judge, Mrs. Carter." But he's pressing for a restraining order to keep things civil during the divorce. I felt heat rise in my chest. He lied to me for years. He has a child with another woman. I confronted him once, calmly, and he calls that harassment? The detective sighed. "I'm just doing my job." But between us, if there's evidence to support your side, you should hold on to it. Courts like paper trails. Paper trails. That's when I realized I had more than a trail. I had an entire map. That night, after putting the kids to bed, I went to my desk and began organizing everything I'd collected. The emails, the travel records, the DNA results, all neatly arranged in folders. As I reviewed them, I noticed something strange. In the documents related to his research assistant, Emily Roberts, there was a recurring name in the email headers, Harrington Medical Group. At first, I assumed it was one of his hospital affiliations, but curiosity got the better of me. I looked it up. It wasn't a research institute. It was a private fertility clinic, one James had been consulting for the past 2 years. Why would a cardiologist need ties to a fertility clinic? The thought made my stomach twist. The next day, I decided to find out. The clinic sat on the edge of town, polished glass walls gleaming in the morning sun. I walked in pretending to be a potential client, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. "I'm here to inquire about the Carter program," I said. It was a bluff. The name had appeared several times in the emails. The receptionist froze. "I'm sorry, ma'am. That's not a public program." "Of course," I said smoothly. "I was just told to ask." She smiled too tightly. "Would you like me to take your contact information?" "No," I said, leaning closer. "But tell Dr. Carter his wife says hello." Her eyes widened. I left before she could call anyone. That evening, as I was locking up the house, my phone buzzed again. A new message. "We need to talk. Emily." For a moment, I thought about deleting it, ignoring her, but curiosity and maybe something darker made me reply. "Where?" "The park near Westbrook Library. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. She was already waiting when I arrived, sitting on a bench in a beige coat, sunglasses hiding her eyes. When she saw me, she stood slowly. "I'm not here to fight," she said, her voice quiet. "You deserve to know the truth." "I already know enough," I said coldly. "You have a son with my husband." She hesitated. "That's not exactly true." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She glanced around before speaking again. "The boy, he's not James's biological son. I had IVF treatments at Harrington Medical. James oversaw my case. He helped me skip the waiting list. But later, I found out he used the clinic to hide something. There are records under fake names, withdrawals that don't match any patients." Her words struck me like a slap. "You're saying he was stealing from the clinic?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But whatever he was doing, he made enemies." "And you exposing him publicly?" "That's what scared him." I sat down, my knees weak. The air around us felt heavy. "He said you shouldn't have done it," she continued, "that you didn't know what kind of people were involved." "What kind of people?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just pressed a small USB drive into my palm. "Find out before they find you." That night, I couldn't sleep. The sound of every creak in the house made me flinch. I kept thinking about that flash drive sitting on my desk and the warning in Emily's voice. Whatever James had done, his betrayal was bigger than infidelity. It was business. It was money. And now, it was danger. I didn't open the flash drive right away. For hours, it just sat there on my desk, a small silver object that suddenly felt heavier than it should. I made tea, cleaned the kitchen, folded laundry, every task I could find to keep my hands busy and my mind away from that thin piece of metal that might change everything. But by midnight, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I locked the doors, turned off the lights, and plugged it into my laptop. At first, there were only folders, numbers instead of names. A 314, B207, C118. Each one contained documents, patient files, and transaction logs. The header read, Harrington Medical Group. Every file was signed by the same name, Dr. James Carter. My pulse quickened. I opened one folder at random. It contained clinical records, fertility treatments, donor information, embryo transfers. But something was off. Some of the donor forms were incomplete, missing signatures or patient consent sections. Others were stamped, confidential, internal use only. And then, buried near the bottom, I found something I didn't expect. A document labeled Client Agreement, C. Reynolds. The date stopped me cold. It was the same week I'd been recovering from my second miscarriage. I opened it, and my stomach turned. The file wasn't for a patient, it was a payment authorization, signed by both James and someone named Dr. Henry Cole, transferring $45,000 to a private account in his name. The reason listed was unlisted consultation. I scrolled through more names, families who'd gone through fertility procedures, couples struggling to conceive, their savings drained by special services. I recognized one name immediately: Claire Martin, the woman who'd told me her little boy was James's son. Except the DNA results had proven otherwise. I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding. James hadn't just cheated. He'd used women, vulnerable families, for profit. The boy wasn't his biological son because he'd arranged the treatments himself. He'd been manipulating embryos, falsifying results, and redirecting funds through the clinic. It was fraud, medical fraud. And it was all right here. I copied everything to a secure folder on my computer and disconnected the drive. My hands were shaking as I hid it under the false bottom of my jewelry box. Sleep didn't come that night. Every sound in the house made me jump. At one point, I swore I heard a car engine idling outside. When I looked out the window, a black sedan was parked across the street, lights off, engine running. I watched it for several minutes before it finally pulled away. Coincidence or warning, I didn't know, but I suddenly understood what Emily meant when she said, "Find out before they find you." The next morning, I called my friend Nina, who worked as a legal secretary for a firm downtown. She'd always been the pragmatic one among us, sharp, calm, loyal. "I need to show you something," I told her, "and I need your discretion." We met that afternoon at a small cafe near her office. I showed her the copies of the files I'd printed out. She flipped through the pages slowly, her expression hardening. "Michelle, this is bad. This isn't just about infidelity. If these documents are real, he could lose his medical license, maybe even face criminal charges." "I know," I said quietly, "but I can't go to the police yet. He'll deny everything, and I have the kids to think about." "Then you need someone who can protect you," she said, "and someone who knows how to make this stick." She gave me the number of Patricia Lane, a lawyer who specialized in corporate misconduct. "She's tough," Nina said, "and she hates men like James." That evening, as I prepared dinner for the twins, I heard a car door slam outside. I peeked through the curtains and froze. James was standing in the driveway, dressed in his hospital scrubs, his face tense. He hadn't been to the house in over a week. He rang the doorbell once, then again, harder. I opened the door only halfway. "What do you want, James?" He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We need to talk." "About what? The divorce? The restraining order? Or the woman who texted me threats?" His jaw clenched. "You're making things worse for yourself, Michelle. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Expose the truth?" I said. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You're meddling in things you don't understand. People get hurt when they don't know when to stop." Something about the way he said people made the hairs on my arms rise. "Is that a threat?" I asked. He shook his head slowly. "It's advice." Then he turned and walked away. I closed the door, locked it, and slid the chain across. My knees felt weak, but inside something shifted. For the first time, I wasn't scared of him. I was angry. That night, I emailed Patricia Lane. Her response came within an hour. "Bring everything you have. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. I closed my laptop and stared at the flash drive still hidden upstairs. James thought he could build a new life on lies. But I had the truth, and I wasn't planning to stay quiet anymore. Patricia Lane's office didn't look like I expected. No marble floors or intimidating furniture, just soft lighting, walls lined with books, and a faint smell of coffee. Yet the moment she shook my hand, I understood why Nina had said she was the kind of woman men like James feared. "Michelle," she said firmly, motioning for me to sit. "I've read the email. Let's start from the beginning." Her voice had that quiet authority that made you want to tell her everything. And I did. I walked her through the timeline, the lipstick stain, the affair, the other woman, the clinic, the files. When I reached the part about the flash drive, she held up a hand. Do you have it with you? Yes. I slid it across the desk. Everything's in there. Patient files, transactions, signatures. He's been using the clinic to move money and falsify records. She nodded slowly, inserting the drive into her laptop. For several minutes, the only sound in the room was the quiet hum of the computer. Her brow furrowed as she clicked through the folders. When she finally spoke, her tone had changed. This isn't minor fraud. These are multiple federal violations: misappropriation of medical funds, falsified patient consent, illegal embryo handling. He could lose his license, yes, but this... She looked up. This could mean prison time. The words landed like a stone in my chest. I should have felt relief, but instead I felt something closer to dread. Can you protect my children? I asked quietly. If this all goes public. She leaned forward. We'll keep them out of it. But you need to be careful, Michelle. If he senses you're working with a lawyer, he'll retaliate. Narcissists like your husband always do. I stared at the folders glowing on her screen. Then what do we do first? Over the next week, Patricia and I worked in secret. Every morning, I dropped the kids at school and drove straight to her office. We spent hours building the case, tracing payments, connecting names, verifying signatures. She had a network of investigators and forensic accountants who could verify every transaction. Everything he touched, she said one afternoon, flipping through a file, was built on other people's pain, infertility, grief, hope. He monetized it. She was right. Every document told the same story: desperate couples overpaying for exclusive treatment, unaware that their records were altered to funnel money through shell accounts. At night, after the kids were asleep, I kept my phone on silent but near my bed. James hadn't contacted me directly since that night in the driveway, but I'd noticed things, subtle things. A car following me once on the highway. A call that hung up the moment I answered. And then one morning, while I was brushing my teeth, I caught a flash of movement outside the bathroom window. A man in a dark coat standing by the mailbox. He wasn't delivering anything, just standing, watching. I called Patricia immediately. Don't panic, she said. Keep your doors locked. I'll send someone to check your security. She paused before adding, James is scared. That's good. It means we're close. 2 days later, Patricia called with an update. We're ready, she said. But I need you to understand. Once this moves forward, there's no going back. The hospital, the clinic, the board, they'll all know. And James will know it came from you. I took a deep breath. He destroyed everything I built my life around. I'm done protecting him. There was a silence, then Patricia said softly, Good. Because we've scheduled a meeting with the medical board for Friday morning. I want you there. Friday came faster than I expected. I barely slept the night before. As I got dressed, I noticed my hands trembling. It wasn't fear this time. It was adrenaline. The meeting took place in a nondescript building downtown. Patricia and I arrived early, her briefcase heavy with files. A panel of 6 board members sat at the long table, their expressions neutral, professional. Patricia did most of the talking. She explained the pattern of fraud, presented the documentation, and showed how the funds had been rerouted through Riverside Consulting, a company James had registered under his brother's name. When she finished, she slid a final document across the table, a notarized affidavit from Emily Roberts. The board chair, an older woman with sharp eyes, glanced up. Dr. Carter's assistant? Yes, Patricia replied. She confirms his involvement in falsifying patient files and personal gain from unapproved procedures. There was a long pause. Then the chair said, We'll be forwarding this to the district attorney's office. Patricia exhaled slowly. I felt my shoulders relax for the first time in months. That relief didn't last long. When I returned home that afternoon, I found the front door slightly ajar. My heart jumped. I pushed it open carefully, my pulse hammering in my ears. Nothing looked stolen, but the air felt wrong. Then I saw it. My jewelry box, the one where I'd hidden the flash drive, was open. Empty. The drive was gone. I called Patricia immediately. "They took it," I said, my voice shaking. "Someone broke in." "Do you have the backups?" she asked. "Yes, but they're on my laptop." I ran to my desk. The laptop was gone too. Patricia didn't hesitate. "Pack a bag. Take the kids. Go stay with someone you trust. I'll handle the rest." I locked up what was left of my house and drove to my sister's. Every red light felt like a trap. Every car behind me suspicious. When I finally arrived, I sat in the driveway, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. James knew I was fighting back. And now, he was fighting too. I didn't sleep the night after the break-in. Every sound, a door creak, a car outside, even the wind brushing against the windows made my heart jump. My sister tried to calm me down, but I could see the worry in her eyes. I wasn't imagining the danger anymore. It was real, and it had James written all over it. At 7 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was Patricia. "They raided his office," she said. "The board issued an emergency suspension order last night. The hospital turned over all digital records." My breath caught. "Even without my flash drive?" "Yes. Turns out the backups you made and the copies we'd already filed were enough. He's been subpoenaed for questioning." For the first time in months, I let out a shaky laugh. "So, it's over?" "Not yet," Patricia said. "He'll try to control the story. But once the district attorney finishes reviewing the evidence, it will move fast. You should stay with your sister a few more days." I thanked her, but inside I knew hiding wasn't going to end this. I needed to face him. Not for revenge, for closure. That afternoon, James called. The first call since he'd left our house for good. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity, or maybe defiance, won. "You got what you wanted," he said, his voice low, almost tired. "Congratulations." I stayed silent. "You destroyed my career, my reputation. Are you happy now?" "You destroyed yourself, James," I said quietly. "You just thought you were untouchable." He laughed, bitter, hollow. "You never understood how things really work. People don't care about right or wrong. They care about who controls the story." "Then tell me your story," I said. "Why?" "Why did you do it?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "Because I could. Because people trusted me and I stopped caring why he hung up before I could reply." For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the phone. That was the man I'd spent 15 years with. The father of my children. The person I thought I knew better than anyone. But hearing him speak like that, stripped of all charm, made something click inside me. The grief, the anger, the fear, they all gave way to something new. Freedom. 2 days later, Patricia called again. "He's requested a meeting," she said. "His lawyer wants to negotiate before the indictment becomes public." "Negotiate?" I repeated. "He wants to offer a financial settlement in exchange for your cooperation. Silence, essentially." I thought about it for a moment. "I'll meet him." But not to make a deal. The meeting took place in a small conference room at Patricia's office. I arrived first. My hands were steady, my pulse calm. When James walked in, he looked older, thinner, his confidence chipped away. He sat across from me, avoiding my eyes. "You could have kept this private," he said. "Do you know what this will do to our children?" "Our children," I repeated, the words tasting bitter. "The ones you almost dragged into your lies?" "They'll be fine, because they'll know the truth." He rubbed his temples. "You've turned me into a criminal." "You did that yourself," I said. "And you used people who trusted you, women who were desperate to start families. Do you even remember their names?" He looked up sharply, his mask slipping for the first time. "You don't understand what it's like to be me." "No," I interrupted, my voice firm. "You don't understand what it's like to be me. To live next to someone every day and not see the monster they're becoming." He didn't reply. The silence between us was heavy, final. Patricia entered the room and placed a document in front of him. Mr. Carter, the district attorney's office has everything they need. You can cooperate and reduce your sentence, or we can proceed to trial. James's lawyer whispered something in his ear, but I could see the defeat already in his eyes. The man who once believed he could manipulate anyone was cornered by the one person he underestimated: me. He signed the agreement without another word. As he stood to leave, I said quietly, "You once told me you needed a new life. I hope you enjoy the one waiting for you now." He hesitated, then walked out. I never saw him again. In the weeks that followed, everything unfolded quickly. The story broke across local news. Respected cardiologist arrested in fertility fraud investigation. Dozens of patients came forward. The clinic shut down. The hospital issued public apologies. I watched it all from a distance. Not with satisfaction, but with a strange, calm sadness. Justice didn't bring joy. It brought peace. The kids asked questions, of course. I told them the truth, in pieces they could understand. "Daddy made mistakes," I said, "but we'll be okay." And we were. 6 months later, I stood outside Vincenzo's, the same restaurant where it had all begun. The candlelit tables glowed through the windows, laughter spilling out into the warm evening air. I wasn't there to confront anyone this time. I was there to close the circle. I ordered a glass of wine and sat by the window. A young couple nearby held hands, smiling, full of the hope I once had. For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness, not for what I'd lost, but for how long it had taken me to realize I could survive without him. As I raised my glass, I whispered softly to myself, "To a new life. Not his. Mine."